So I really want young people listening to this to remember that rejection is not a reflection on you, but rather just a redirection for a bigger you.
From CNR JUTA DE BEER, imi nomsindisi wesizwe, umvelisi emnqango umelisi wesizwe, formerly known as Lwazi Madonsela, bringing you a show about creative entrepreneurs live from the landmark that not only birth SA street culture, but also formalize the street hustle. On today's episode, we have Candice Chirwa. Today I have my special guest, Candice Chirwa, a podcaster, a broadcaster, public speaker, TEDx speaker.
Wow.
You're probably going to make your own speaker soon.
It's the way you're plugging me on. I feel like I need you to be my spokesperson.
Bring me in the writing room.
You know what I'm saying?
Just like every time, what would you like to say to the Minister of Menstruation?
Yeah, he speaks through me so I can speak for her. I love that.
Candice Chirwa, the Minister of Menstruation, lecturer, game changer,
an
activist.
Oh.
How does it feel to be you? PhD candidate.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Lwazi.
I'm a nice guy.
Yeah. I guess. New year, new me, right?
New year, new Yeezys.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay. Shout out. Manifest. Well. Let's go.
But yeah.
Why do you need me in this conversation?
We need you in this conversation to explain the business of activism.
Okay.
People think they should create change, but they don't know the mechanisms behind creating change.
Right.
Because even right now, we're facing an energy crisis. People want to add to it. But how do you actually become an activist? And then make it financially lucrative enough to start an NGO to actually help people and bring about change?
Right. So it's ultimately realizing and recognizing that, you know, the first thing that you have to prioritize is people and not profit. And in as much as that sucks, right? Because obviously you need to have bills paid, you need to have everything paid. Often corporates, other businesses who are willing to align with you and they see the passion more than they see this willingness to get bags. So when I initially started Curate, which is the nonprofit that does the menstruation workshops, I had to have 6 months of just pure sacrifice of everything that I'm doing for these workshops is just coming from my own income. And at the time, it wasn't much. I was a student, right? I wasn't doing a lot. But I knew that there was this real need to empower the girl child in conversations, right? But I think what was important was to say, in as much as this might not make money now, it is something that could ultimately bring about necessary change that could then become a social movement to make money later. So that would always be at the back of my mind, but it wasn't my main priority. My main priority was the education and the empowerment. So that has to speak through with the work that you produce. Yeah. Now, whether it is trying to end the energy crisis to trying to alleviate, poverty in spaces, you have to make sure that you are surrounded by a team that sees the vision as well. Because I couldn't have established Curate on my own. I needed a team to be directors. I needed a team to be facilitators. I needed a team to establish the brand identity, but it came at no cost because this is a nonprofit. So ultimately, you have to make sure that your vision for this organization or the vision for what it is that you intend to do about bringing social change, people see it as well so that they can support your project. There's a lot of lessons to be learned and shared, I think, in that there were moments where I was willing to hang up the Minister of Menstruation cape. I was like, this is not going to work. What am I doing? What is happening? But ultimately, what always kept me going was going back at the workshops that we've done, seeing the images of those young girls smiling and feeling empowered. And that reminded me that there's still so many others that need that empowerment. So why should I stop? Because of imposter syndrome, right? And I don't want to veer off too much in terms of mental health and trying to empower people and always checking on your battery because you're always giving. But it's something that if you are going to delve into the world of activism as a career, you always have to prioritize that you're okay. You have to. Because there's no way you can effectively give yourself efficiently when you haven't slept for 9 hours, you haven't eaten, it's terrible experiencing burnout and trying to give back to people. It's the worst thing you can experience. But there are lessons that I learned along the way and lessons that I'm always keen to share with so many young activists because I recognize that I'm not going to be here forever.
Please share them, yeah.
Sure. I mean, how much are you paying me?
Visibility. It's an NPO.
Yeah, but I'm a...
Corner Juta is a non-profit organization.
Oh, okay.
We're hoping to align.
Oh, okay. So now you're learning. No, I hear you. I mean, I don't know where to start without getting emotional. And I don't know if you've had people who've cried on your podcast, but I don't know if I want to be the first person. I don't know if I want to be the first person.
Tell your story.
Oh, gosh. Lwazi. Okay.
Is this the 10 years old story? Or the 21 years old story? Or is it both?
It's both. But I think more than anything, I will tell my 21-year-old story of how taking the risk to start a nonprofit after leaving a big corporation like the United Nations was a very terrifying move to make, but it's landed me in the position where I am today. And often what we tend to underestimate is sometimes when we are put into positions that are meant to mold us into our actual intended purpose, you should never look down upon them. You should never think that this was a waste of time. Because I could have easily been like, oh, this consultancy I got at the UN was a waste of time based on the experiences I had there. I had terrible experiences there, right? But I'm thankful for what I learned there in terms of the knowledge, the content, the research, because it ultimately spearheaded and cultivated what Curate is today. So that's my one lesson. Never, ever doubt any small little thing that you get thrown into, whether it be something you're volunteering with, whether it's something that is a job and you don't see it to be beneficial currently, it'll be beneficial in the long run, right? Secondly, I always believe in making sort of like a wish list in the beginning of the year in terms of where are you now, where do you want to go, and where do you see yourself towards the end of the year? Not doing a 5-year plan. It's important, but I think for an organization, sometimes you can easily get caught up, especially in social organizations. You can easily get caught up in this other organization just got this and we haven't. What are we doing wrong? It's always important to always remain sort of in sync. I don't want to make period puns. In sync with your specific vision, right? And also, I think what's important is to separate, I don't know how to say this, but to separate people's concerns for your vision or your direction of an organization that they probably don't see.
Yeah, please say that again.
Okay.
Say it to the camera. That one's very important.
It's important to separate people's sort of concerns for your organization or your project, that they can't see the long-term vision. It's really important to separate that. And it could be your family, it could be your friends. From my own experience, it was my family, where they were just like, what are you doing? What's going on? We don't see what's happening here. You're doing these workshops for free. What's
6 months.
What's happening, right? Where's the income? What's happening? Do you not want to get a job? Do you not want to, so it's not a full thing of like, stop doing it. It's a full thing of these questions that come up that low-key feel this imposter syndrome. But you always have to just remain aligned to your vision, whether that be the organizational vision or your own vision, and just keep on pushing, right? And I think ultimately it will all make sense in the end. Is that my third lesson? Fourth lesson? I don't know. It all makes sense in the end, right? If you allow the passion and determination to be at the forefront of the work that you do.
What's the end?
The end, I mean, do we want to be philosophical?
Because for me, the way I view life, I view life like a 4 a.m. hike on a summer's day.
Okay.
So you keep climbing, looks beautiful. And then it takes even more effort to climb a bit further because fewer people keep getting that higher. So the path is not as good as the bottom.
Right.
So the view just keeps getting better, but the hike keeps getting harder. So for me, I've always viewed it as there's no clear end, which makes me fearful because I think that's with
a lot of anxiety,
which is what is a big driver for anxiety right
Facts.
now. Because I feel like in our generation, because we just access abundance, we don't actually have a clear thing where it's like, I just want to buy a house in Sandton, retire, and just drive my Porsche on weekends.
Right.
It's just like, there's more.
There's an element there, I think, where who do we blame that for? Do we blame capitalism? Do we blame this quick, sort of fast environment that we live in where it's like, okay, I just got this. I need another thing. I need a better thing, you know? I think I want to blame Apple. I do. Because, like, hear me out. We get a new iPhone and then a year later it's another iPhone. It's the same thing,
but it's changed. It's 9 months now.
Yeah. Like let us enjoy it for a bit. Let us be content with this thing. And ultimately, I think that's sort of a pressure that we experience in our generation, where we are rushing into things very quickly, which I don't know. I guess could be a good thing, but everyone wants everything now. They want that house. They want the family. They want the business. They want everything now. Not recognizing. Exactly. No one recognizes that there is a journey to build to get to that hill, if that's what we want to call it. And when you get to that peak of the hill, at least be happy with the view instead of trying to reach for a better view. You got to a view. Embrace it. Be happy. And I think that's why mindfulness is so important for me, where even if it's a small little milestone, like a corporate saying, hey, we want to just donate period products. For me, that's a milestone. It's like, here's a random corporate that had no business of coming to us as a non-profit, but they recognize and see the value of our work and they want to do work with us, you know? So practicing mindfulness is very integral as an activist as well, because often sometimes we get stuck into this world where we don't see the value that we bring. And as much as a lot of people will be telling you you're doing incredible work, there's always an element, especially for me, where I'm like, I feel like I could do better, you know? But not practicing that mindfulness of saying, actually affirm yourself and saying, yes, you are doing incredible work. Giving yourself that pat in the back and saying, yes, you did speak to a group of 200 girls and you're doing incredible work. So, I don't know, Lwazi, this conversation is laced with a lot of, yes, practical lessons in terms of, you know, how do you run an organization, but also how do you take care of yourself whilst running an organization that feeds into giving into people?
Yeah.
Right. And I know that I've done a lot of talks. I think there's a talk with Nedbank about how you practically, you know, set up your nonprofit and how you practically run it and how do you move from a people to profit vision and all that jazz, right? But I think for me, I'm very intentional in ensuring that young people, especially who are entering into the space, are very in tune with who they are as an individual, because it's very easy to be easily swayed by other people's vision for you. It's very easy to be easily swayed by other people's goals for you. But you need to be always intent and content on what it is that you want to do for yourself and in what it is that you want to do for this organization. And yeah, I don't want to get emotional, but it's tough building. A friend of ours always says, just keep building. But sometimes to pick up the hammer and to pick up the toolbox, it's hard. It's hard.
I had a conversation with my mother. We were sitting, right?
Yeah.
Because this thing that happens every time I go back home, she'll prescribe some books, and then I'll read the books. That will be my thing. Just wash dishes, read books, assist where I can, but not really there for business, not doing it, just staying in the house, essentially. So within that moment, we were talking hardships, talking books, talking authors, talking all 9 yards. And then the thing that stood out most importantly for me in the conversation, she was like, everyone always talks about hardships. Everyone always talks about solutions. Everyone talks about change, progress, the whole 9 yards, right? But she's like, the reality of things is that equipment goes in tiers.
Yes.
The tier to say, yo, you need to supply us with menstrual stuff. In the same light, the parents are not even equipped for that.
Yes.
Because it's probably like a children-ran household, right? And then for an NPO, I want to make change. I don't even understand what a business is.
Right.
Because to me, if it's a non-profit, it means no tax. But the reality of things, you still have staff that have to pay tax.
Exactly.
Which then leads to this other thing where, as a person who runs that business, it's the most important thing that I've learned in the past year or so, is that most creatives who are actively making change, who are actively running businesses, do not even know how to formulate a pay slip. How did you find your way around that?
Yeah, no. I recognized my strengths and weaknesses, and I went to a business school that was intent on cultivating female entrepreneurship. So I did a 1-year course where I learned about all of the ins and outs of running a business, but then integrating that with a nonprofit. Because as you rightly mentioned, a nonprofit, although there's tax benefits, it still runs as a company.
Yeah.
But there's an element where when the money comes in, it's not going straight into the directors. The directors are not getting that money. Who needs to get paid? It's the people that provided the services, your facilitators. Who needs to get paid in terms of service providers for materials? So there's a lot of people who get paid, and then whatever's left ultimately has to still sit in the company, right? And depending on the agreement that you have as 3 directors or 4, 6 directors, maybe directors are entitled to an equity maybe every 6 months or every year at the end of the year. But those are things I needed to learn, right? Because I think what I realized is that, yes, I'm driven for this passion for people, but if I want to run this organization effectively and efficiently, I need to learn the skills of how to run a business. And when it comes to a nonprofit, right, what people often realize is that everything is for free. Well, actually, what you realize is that the skills that you put in, the time that you deliver is actually something that can be charged. You can send an invoice to say, the time that it takes for me to manage the facilitators is a line item. The time that it takes for me to start my car and put petrol is a line item. The time that it takes for me to develop the workshop materials in cultivating something is a line item. So you can still charge for those things, but you ultimately need to have a justification, right? And that needs to, in terms of the person that you're providing the service to, needs to see the value in it and saying, okay, I know you're spending an hour or 2 hours with children. These are the things that you're providing. Sure, that's fine.
And then there's this thing that's been bothering me, especially in South Africa, right?
Okay.
Because of our financial history,
Don't say lotto.
Political history, the whole 9 yards. I've realized that Black business owners are more influencers, MCs, motivational speakers than they are business people. How do you separate in that moment where it's like, I don't just need the money where you guys are paying me to speak on this. I still need you guys to pay into my organization.
Yeah.
Because that's where the real change is. I need you guys to give us equipment.
Yeah.
Where there's rendering us the accounting services for free if you can't afford. How do you do that?
So ultimately, any brand that works with the Minister of Menstruation needs to understand the Minister of Menstruation's universe and the work that the Minister of Menstruation does outside of just educational content and awareness on social media. So part of the conversations we have in, the introduction of Minister of Menstruation, what the brand requires in terms of a campaign is that we say, okay, sure, we're happy with these deliverables. We're happy that you actually understand who the Minister of Menstruation is. But outside of that, there is an opportunity for a CSI program from your organization to feed into Curate, right? And I think that's something that a lot of young people need to realize is that in as much as you can be a founder of so many other things, you can still make it speak into the work that you do and saying, oh yeah, I might be able to speak about sneakers, but I also do this. And so we could find potential synergies there. And so never ever doubt the opportunities and the ideas for cross collaboration if it exists. So I always do that thing of okay, so here's a corporate like Nedbank who, is about ensuring that young people are empowered. But what can Nedbank do to ensure that Curate is increasing that scale of impact for more young people to be empowered? Let's fulfill that. Let's actually fulfill that as a deliverable, right? So we do that cross collaboration where we're saying, okay, so your campaign is about reaching young people about financial empowerment and education. Curate is about reaching young people about enabling with critical thinking skills. We are happy to perhaps provide a workshop in that, right? And these are conversations that you have in the background whilst obviously the campaign's happening, but it's about that relationship building. It's about showing and them experiencing, the work that you provide. So often what I always do is I always provide an invite to these big corporates to say, okay, well, you've approached us on this thing, but we'd like to invite you to a Curate workshop so that we can see for potential collaboration, potential room to grow. So it's always about not only just investing in me as an individual so that I can get new sneakers and get my nails did, but also to ensure that Curate is a sustainable entity with these organizations that collaborate with the Minister of Menstruation.
What's your word to the youth?
Oh, can I have a word to ESCOM?
No. The youth, ESCOM is affecting the youth.
ESCOM is affecting the youth.
But to the youth,
Okay.
To the 21-year-old you.
You,
or with an iPhone.
You really want me to
14 Pro.
cry.
With the iPhone 14
You really
Pro.
want me to cry today. Damn it. Okay. A message to the youth. We really deserve better. We deserve much more better than this, these current times that we're living in, right? But ultimately, don't let that stop you from establishing the dreams that you want for yourself, the vision that you see for yourself, that you manifest for yourself. I am a believer in when one door closes, multiple open. And so for young people this year, I really want them to see failure not as a rejection on them, but rather as a redirection for their life to be for a better purpose, right? So
everybody at home say amen.
Amen. Because I wish someone had told 21-year-old Candice that when the pressure on me was to get a full-time corporate gig and I kept getting rejected, right? I wish there was someone to tell me this rejection is a redirection into something greater than you, which is ultimately who I am right now, who I am in this jacket right now, who I am serving and educating so many young people right now. That, for me, should have been something I wish I was told to avoid the dark moments in my life where I felt like, you know what, I'm ready to give this up. So I really want young people listening to this to remember that rejection is not a reflection on you, but rather just a redirection for a bigger you.
Candice Chirwa, Juta De Beer, the Minister of Transformation. Minister of Transformation, because we want change in real time. Oh my gosh. We appreciate the work you're doing. Keep doing more work. Don't stop working.
Thank you.
Because the work keeps you working.
I appreciate that.
Shout out.